Ganetime worked hours, the main inputting screen of the system, lets you monitor and update the worked hours for an employee, whether it's amending clock-ins that are coming in via clocks, or whether it's manual data entry or amendments, and check-in to see whether the employee has entered their times correctly. Worked hours process is multiple tabbed option that brings up a week's data at a time. Usually timekeepers working weekly cycles, even if it's a monthly payroll. We often recommend that you do the payroll, the weekly timesheet processing on a weekly basis, in order that you don't get too far behind and forget what people have done 3 weeks ago. For my 4 selected employees, this screen shows that for this week ending date, information has already been entered for the employees. The orange highlighting says that this employee is not signed off, which means that we're partway through processing for the week. We've entered the hours, but this period has not been signed off. If it was signed off, if we go back to a previous period using the date selection at the top of the screen for January, this information, if we go into the timesheet option, updates are not permitted because this employee has already been paid up to this date, so we can't make any changes here. So choosing the first week in the period that we're interested in, we have times entered for the days on which this employee worked. So from the shift pattern, he's worked 8 till 1700 with a 1 hour break on the Sunday. Monday we've got a paid vacation in, and Tuesday he's worked 8 till 4, so a slightly shorter day. If you're going to amend that employee and you want to change the date and time, or the time that he's clocked in or out, you can simply overtype the time. Up at the top it says unsaved changes pending, to remind you that you have to click update to record the data changes. The hours screen is a summary screen. Changes that we make will be updated on this screen, and if we can go through the weeks looking at the employees that we've done, we find that this week looks different. This week is highlighted in red. It says unspecified absence. This basically means there's no data being entered for the employees. This is how you'd normally come to a new employee who's not clocking in order to enter their timesheet. If the employee was clocking, this data would be partially populated with their clock-ins from their clocking devices on a daily basis. But for purpose of timesheet entry, which is a requirement where people don't clock, we just want a quick and easy way of entering the times for people from the manual timesheet screen. So choosing the first employee for this particular week, the screen looks very similar to the completed screen because Ganetime has populated the start and end time from the employee's shift pattern. So this employee has expected shift times of Sunday to Thursday and Saturday, 6-day working week. Just for a pure manual entry of a bog standard week, you can just click the update button and it will record those times. If I go back to the hours screen now, the summary, you'll see that the hours for that employee have now been entered. So for a standard simple week where you want to pay exactly what the shift pattern dictates, that's the quickest and easiest way of doing it. If I chose another employee, you can click on the name and it will take you straight to that employee. Again, we pre-populate the timesheet information with what's on the shift pattern, but if we wanted to say this employee worked until 8 PM on the Sunday and until 9 PM on the Tuesday, again you just type in the start and end times that you require. The time for the day is updated at the bottom of the data section, and you can update that information. Quick and easy timesheet entry. If you go back to the hours screen, Again, this information has now been populated. If you want to book an absence for an employee, you will go to the Daily tab. Currently, because the data on the other screen was just defaulted, there are no authorised times, there are no adjusted times. Authorised times overwrite the shift pattern times, so if you wanted to say he worked between 6 o'clock and 6 o'clock, you could override the authorised times here. And you'd have to put in the actual clocking times to match, and that would be a way of updating the timesheet to say he worked between 6 and 6 rather than between 8 and 5. Moving on to the Monday, there's no hours in there, so for Monday I want to book an absence. You can use the pop-up box of absence codes. We've got all the standard QVC absence codes set here, so I'm going to book a paid vacation for this particular day. If I say that that's an all-day absence, we populate the time with the start and end times from the shift pattern, so you don't have to worry about getting the length of the absence right. A full day's absence, just check the box and that will book it for the entire day. Going back to the hours screen, we've now got the 11 hours that I put in for the Sunday and the paid vacation for the Monday. Going back into the timesheet option just to make sure that the changes are in there. Yep, we've got the 6 to 1800 working hours on the Sunday. We've got the paid vacation on the Monday. Everything else can be defaulted, so I'm happy with that. I can update that record now. So we now have 3 out of the 4 employees all sorted for the week, just the final one to do, and I will update that with the default records. If somebody subsequently comes along and says, I worked on the feast day, the Friday, you can go into the Daily tab, choose the Friday and enter the time that the employee worked. Not forgetting to put both the expected times and the actual times that they worked. These are a match pair. Again, because it's based on a clocking system, this is the shift time that you're putting in, and these are pretending to be the clockings that you put in to override that. Because Friday is a non-contracted day, the payroll rules dictate that ordinarily that will be overtime. If you're wanting this employee to work that day as a normal shift, you have to click the drop down and say pay as a normal shift. That will then mean that the standard working rule, the labour law for that particular employee, be it 8 hours at basic and then accrue overtime, will apply. If you don't put that in, or you say pay as overtime, all the hours will be paid as overtime. So that's the way you can get around the man working on a Friday but not expecting to work it as a rest day, and you click update accordingly. On the hours screen, we've now got all the days completed. There's no red boxes there, so we're happy to go on. Looking at the final week, we can see that all these hours are also completed. So I'm happy that all the hours for those 4 employees have been completed and entered, and it's just a case of now saying, right, we're ready to go for transfer to payroll. First of all, we need to sign these employees off. So we take the timesheet sign off option. Allocations are not required for these employees. They're currently signed off to the 31st of January. The current pay period end is the 28th of February, and there are 4 employees ready for sign off. This screen would notice and tell you if there were anybody that were already signed off or were unable to sign off. I want to sign off all the eligible employees. All these employees have now been signed off. If I go back to the worked hours process, The timesheet now says updates not permitted, employees signed off up to the 28th. If you hover over the individual days, this will say not signed off. This is because there is also an individual sign off required here, but we're not using that particular facility. That's all to do with whether the time is allocated or not. Purposes of timesheet entry in order for payroll, this employee is done and he's signed off and he's ready to go through the payroll process. Just to check that everybody's ready for transfer to roll forward on the payroll. The status for these employees now says ready to roll forward for the pay period ending the 28th of February. So they are now in a state where the timekeepers have done their job on site and it's ready to go to central payroll or central head office to run the payroll creation and extraction. And that's part of a separate training video. But the worked hours process is complete. We've entered the timesheets for the employees, we've entered absences, we've entered authorised overtime, we've entered working on a non-contracted day.